Still a little big. Do you want to take your photo or no?
Actually, can't you?
Okay. Fix the collar, homie. There's nobody on here. Oh, I lied. There are people on. Just go. It's okay. We take this upstairs, please. Okay.
I just put a cracker in my mouth, Casey.
I'm very sorry.
How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. It's chilly in our house for some reason, so yeah.
Well, it's really windy, so that makes a difference with our house. So if it's just cold, our house is fine, but when that wind picks up, forget about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I uh I like this is my office as well as uh like my bike shop sometimes and everything else. And so I think I just spend a lot of time in this room and I look for excuses to not at this point.
Yeah, just too cold. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So this is my first meeting, but we're not gonna judge, right?
Oh, absolutely not. I wasn't going to call you out specifically, but um, just a heads up, this meeting is being recorded. So just so everyone knows. But yeah, could have a pretty small crowd tonight, depending on questions that might be coming up. We're kind of as a league, we're kind of in a good spot right now. Just in terms of people are starting to finalize jerseys and feel comfortable at least with fundraising, and then we're not quite to the point of where everybody's practicing, but we're starting to get a few practices under our belts too. So this is these meetings are pretty much an open forum, unless I come with a really big agenda, or any big items that we need to discuss. But I really I try to encourage all of the either team directors or head coach or somebody to have representation here too, because we do get into some dialogue around league rules, or what's going on specific teams, or if there's anything that we can help out with at a league level. So yeah, and that's pretty much what these calls are. Richard, how you doing, man?
Pretty good. What's up, Casey?
Oh, living the dream.
Is that a
Yeah.
what's your hat say?
Washburn?
Oh, I thought so. I was like, go Ichabod's.
Yeah, that's right. I was there all day. Actually, this was a freebie. They had a career fair today, and I was out there looking for interns. So if anybody knows of anyone who has a interest in IT, I'm hiring 21 interns just in IT. 4 seconds before we get rolling. I'll go ahead and pull up Pit Zone to grab numbers.
137. We
One.
had 2 more jump on this afternoon.
Nice. See, I knew we were gonna have this late February boom that's gonna start putting us closer to that 150 number.
Is that practice ready?
Yeah, that's practice ready and ready to roll. So and I know that we have I know that Topeka has at least 3 more that we're having to get through the Pit Zone stuff too. So it'll be good.
So quick question. We had a bunch of people that were practice ready before the races were added for the league. Do we need to ask the parents to go in and re-register them for each event, or can we just do that in mass? That's
a really good question, and it's something that we need to talk about as a group here. Yes.
Are you guys getting?
Yeah, I can hardly hear him. It sounds like he's on slow
Most
play.
important is we need those, and somebody is aware that they're driving. I'll pull over. Casey, you know where I'm going with that?
Dude, you sounded like a drunk robot.
Oh, well, maybe. All right. Can you hear me any better now?
Yes, much.
Okay. You can do it either way. Richard, you could register all of your athletes, or the parents can go in and register their athletes. What we ask is that it is accurate. So if they're not going to be at a race, it is really important that they take them off of the list, because when we put the start list together, it helps us out if we're not hollering for student athletes who aren't going to be there.
Yep.
Okay.
And as an example, Lila Kaufman did it perfectly. She's green check marks all the way through. And we will ask that you green check mark the rain date too, just to make sure that we have an understanding of who could make that rain date should it happen.
So the only exception would be somebody who already knows a specific race they're going to miss. Just don't check that one.
Yep. And
Okay.
so for the
Right.
yeah, for the folks that are going to be at Grit Weekend, because Grit Weekend is basically an event too in Pit Zone. So we might want to, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to know with some of our handful of girls whether they're doing that until we know what the details are. So
Yep. That's totally fair. But yeah, we Dallas and Sarah use that to basically help with lineups, and it just makes everything a whole lot easier when we know specific kids aren't there like the Wednesday before the race, because that's when we print out the staging info and get the staging info set.
So the Wednesday before is
Good.
kind of fine. To make sure that they have that green check mark.
Yep, and we always go over that in on the coaches calls that are basically the pre-race race flyer walkthroughs. I always try to remind everybody to make sure that you have that stuff updated too.
Casey,
Hey, Lisa,
I
what's up?
I noticed several of our boys, they checked the grit weekend. As coaches, can we go in and uncheck that weekend, or do the parents have to do that?
Coach should be able to. I did it for mine.
Thank you.
Cool. But yeah, so beyond that, kind of wanted to give Dallas the floor a little bit this morning or this evening, so we can go over some potential changes and just some maybe a run up on how the league's going.
Okay. So I want to make sure you can still hear me because I'm driving and I'm like 5 minutes away from pulling them. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Or do I still sound like a drunken robot?
We can hear you.
All right. So we have had petitions for the varsity boys, but it has been just a few petitions. And while we recognize the athletes who have petitioned, we went back to really what our petitioning criteria is, and that is one, how you finished in the league, and then if you didn't meet the criteria for how you finished the previous year in like a league racing, then we would go to outside events. So think USAC events or other mountain bike events, and how you placed in those events. And use that as data to support the reasoning for petitioning. And what we went back and looked at is that the young men who had petitioned to varsity, none of them had a real, they didn't have anything to support petitioning to varsity from an outside the league race series. But in talking about where we want the league to be, its growth, and really giving everybody an opportunity to race athletes, of the same caliber. We feel like it is important for there to be a varsity group for the Kansas NICA League, and in order for it to grow and for our young athletes to have, have a place to look to as they continue to race and as their abilities grow. So what we have decided we're going to do, is we're going to use Wilson Lake, the first race of the year, as we're going to use it as a really kind of a I don't know, what am I looking for here? Casey, help me out. We're gonna basically, what we're gonna do is, after the Wilson Lake race, the JV boys, we're gonna take a step back, look at where everybody finished, and see if we see a clear demarcation line. Similar to what we saw last year, we had about 4 or 5 riders who there was a clear gap between the abilities of those riders in racing one another. And we're going to provide those riders the opportunity to petition up into the varsity category. With that, we will move their points that they accrue from that race over to the varsity, and the next riders in line in the JV will then assume their place for second, third, and so forth throughout the rest of the season through the JV category. What we felt like that does is it maintains the validity of the selection process. It's real hard when you're a new league and you don't have a bunch of racers to fall into that 10% criteria. So we thought this was the best opportunity to really compare all the riders to one another And maybe for some of the ones who had petitioned to take a real good look at really where they are amongst their peers. And then based off of where they finished, move them to varsity.
Hey,
Any,
Dallas, I'm gonna make one
yeah.
prediction that's gonna happen on the first race. You're gonna have somebody that's trying to move to varsity. Will have a mechanical, so just come up with an answer for that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's racing. And we're prepared for that. There's never a great, there's never a hard and steady, like, this is the best way to do it. And we understand that. Again, with the new and the young league like we have, some of these things are going to have to be some judgment calls. And we felt like this was the best way, again, to really just maintain the validity of the selection process and how we do things. And again, I do believe that the varsity category is important for the growth of the league, especially for the younger riders. We've got a whole lot of middle school kids. I mean, the bulk of our league is middle school. And I want to provide an opportunity for those kids. In addition to that, we have a lot of athletes who are looking for opportunities outside of high school, be that in college or elsewhere, and having the opportunity to race against other athletes who match their skill level, and also having that varsity, the varsity title or whatever next to their race season is an important thing as they look to move forward into endeavors outside of high school.
There's
Any other feedback? Go ahead.
So if somebody doesn't want to be in varsity, but they place well at Wilson, are you gonna, like, is it gonna be mandatory for them to like create a varsity class that you pull them up? I mean, I don't have anybody that petitioned, so I don't have a dog in the fight, so to speak, but we've got a junior and a senior who, let's say they place well, one of them's never raced. Like, what if you just still don't end up with a varsity class that's really competitive, or where they're always all on the podium every time? I mean, is it a separate race, or is it not going to be a separate race? I guess I'm just curious.
Is the varsity race going to be a separate race?
Yeah.
Varsity race
After
will be a separate
Wilson.
race. Yes, it will be after Wilson. So here's the thing: the way NICA is constructed, outside of freshman and sophomore categories, there really is no requirement to move up into a different category. I feel pretty comfortable in understanding and knowing which riders we have in the JV category. If there is a rider that comes out of the woodwork and knocks the socks off of the other riders, and they decide that they don't want to petition up to varsity, I'd be curious as to why not. But I still feel comfortable saying that that is their decision. We will support that decision, but I still feel like the varsity category will be more than competitive.
And have enough
Again,
riders to have, not just have everybody on the podium at every race who's in varsity.
what's that?
I said, and there's a question, and not have just so few riders in varsity that they're always all on the podium, just, trading spots.
I mean, the goal is to have enough riders that it is, that the field eventually becomes full, so that it's not just 3 riders. But look at our, varsity girls category right now. There's 3. So 3 girls are going to be on the podium every time. That's of no fault of their own. That is just
Right.
a matter of where they are and where the rest of the league is. And I would say the same for the varsity men. If we only end up with 3, we only end up with 3. Based off of what I've seen out of the athletes we had last year, who we have returning, who we have coming in and petitioning, I feel pretty comfortable in saying I think that it's probably going to be about 4 or 5 athletes. I hope that I'm really surprised, and it's a real tough. Hard for us to make the decision, but I hope that it's a real tough line. And when we look at it and go, you know what, every one of these athletes belongs together. But what we saw last year in the JV category was that it was the same athletes sharing the podium and just switching steps. And so this allows an opportunity for those athletes to continue to go trade steps, push one another, but also provides the JV group an opportunity to really have something to strive for as well. So I feel like it is a win-win all the way around, not only for the league and helping build it, but also for these athletes who are, again, who are trying to make themselves better and looking for those spots.
Yeah, I get that. I could see that being a benefit to the JV, that they're actually kids in contention that probably weren't counting on that. So I'm not against it. I was just trying to clarify. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Dallas.
Yep. Anybody else got any feedback?
Have you considered setting up a separate category for drunk robots?
Yeah. Well, Neb, the tough part is driving in between work sites, and boy, I'll tell you what. Zoom
Every
does
time I'm
not-
drunk, it's really hard to drive between work sites. I get it. I
Yeah,
get it.
know. Zoom don't like driving. Any other questions?
No, good meeting.
Yeah, like just from we went over numbers already, which is great. That was really the big thing that we wanted to make sure that we talked about as a group. We are a league in its infancy still, and so trying to figure out how to do this equitably is not easy, and that's really why we're coming to you guys for these conversations, to make sure that we're shoot holes in our plans, help us get better, and that's really the reason that this call exists too, is to provide you guys an opportunity to give back feedback and anything from a league perspective that you guys have and you want to share, either with your team or with this team too. We're totally here for it.
I got a license question and you might be able to help me out with.
Yeah,
At least
bud.
point me in the right direction. So my level 3 coach's license is currently suspended until I've got my first aid and my CPR updated.
Okay.
Okay. But instead of dropping me to a level 1, it just like says I'm not licensed at all now. Is there anybody at National that can like turn my level 1 license on while I'm waiting for those two to come back?
You are missing your NICA level 1 coach course.
So I got to redo the level 1 courses.
And I had this just come up with one of our coaches, Matthew Browning, had this issue. He dropped level 2 because of CPR, and it showed him that he didn't have anything, even though he had all 1 checked off. All he had to do, and this is silly, but all he had to do was quiz out of the license 1. So he didn't have to watch it again, but it made him quiz out of it again. It made him answer the questions.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Ned.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys remember or not, but in 2019, they redid all of the curriculum too. And so, or 2019? No, it was 2020. And so when that happened, I think that they just basically wiped out the previous licenses. And so I think you're probably just a byproduct of that, because you moved forward with everything. So yeah, I'm showing just your coach level 1 course, and that's it. Everybody is everybody at least to a point of where you're practicing and you're you're gut checking your other staff too, to make sure that everybody is green check marked? Does anybody have any questions? Want to send an angry coach my way so I can explain to them why it's important that they stay licensed? I'm here for that. Except for you, Neb. Cool. Let's see.
So, all right, Casey, I do have one more thing. I
Yeah.
know this is near and dear for Jensen. So they just sent out a communication about the whole NICA conversion over to USAC licensing and the free licensing. And I will be honest with you, it sounds like a pretty cumbersome process. I will, when I get to my computer tonight, I will sit down, get that email sent out to, sorry, all the team directors. So you have that. Beyond that, it's really a hands-off process for the league. It's more of the coaches and the individual parents getting it set up.
Thanks,
I
Dallas.
just got communication on it this week.
Cool. As far as team practices go, anybody, everybody, well, most people are practicing at this point. I know Topeka just had our first practice this week. Has anybody ran into any issues with practice, like practice planning? You guys working on coordination? Is there anything that we can do from a practice planning or practice coaching perspective? Everybody's off to the races.
Make the snow not show up. That would be sweet.
Yeah. I think we're canceling. Well, Neb gets to decide if we're canceling our first Topeka practice on Thursday. On our
Okay, well, we're on subject on that, and I'm following advice I learned long ago to read the room, right? So I'm reading the room, and it's like too peaceful. Nobody's punching anybody, nobody's cussing anybody out. So with that backdrop, I'm gonna pose this question. With that backdrop and the fact that I'm gonna have to cancel practice tomorrow due to snowstorm, and I checked the weather for the rest of February, and it's only gonna rain. Can we switch to the fall league? All right, who's gonna start punching? Anybody wants to explode or cuss anybody out?
I'll punch first. Just you'll lose teams and people because we've got like a lot of cyclocross racers in the league, and they'll all walk.
I know that short term, we're gonna lose a lot. Short term, we're gonna damage those kids. We're gonna damage. I think we're gonna damage kids that are gonna miss the entire year. They're gonna miss their senior year. But long term, you know, if we cannot, like I'm looking at this weather, there's chance higher than 10% for rain every day in February. And I don't know about your guys' trails, but ours take like 2 or 3 weeks to dry up. So I think at some point, we're gonna have to weigh off what are we damaging on one side and then what we can and cannot do on the other side. Because if we end up having a season where we don't have 3 races again because they get rained out, and I can only squeeze 5 practices in because and those 4 out of those 5 are on concrete instead of off-road because stuff is wet. I don't know. I know that this would not be easy. I know that this would not be smooth. I know it would do a whole lot of damage.
So, yeah, I'll address it. We're not moving the league for a couple reasons. We internally went through this show just a little bit last year because I will tell you, even though I don't agree with it, I originally thought maybe it would be for the good of the league for it to move, because obviously I thought the weather patterns were better, and I would actually be one of the ones that would have to say that I wouldn't be able to be present and supportive of the. I would support the league best I could, but more than likely myself and my kid wouldn't be involved because of racing outside of it. So we actually went ahead and ran the numbers, Neb, and it rains as much in the fall in Kansas as it does in February. So
That makes me feel better, actually. Thank you.
yeah, we actually pulled the graphs and looked. I mean, I was the same way, right? Like I was like, oh yeah, hell, we'll be able to ride all the time. It turns out that's not the case. So there's a lot of things that are lost with that. You talk about losing. I mean, we're still growing, and that's a positive. You know, we've already superseded last year's numbers. it's more than a minor setback. You lose the momentum, you lose the, you know, the financial support that, you know, we're hopefully gaining and continuing to keep this league going. There's a lot that gets lost in that from that aspect as well. So it's a good question.
You should tap into your legacy coaches and better understand practice planning on pavement and opportunities there. Because you know, we have a lot of paved trails here in Topeka, and it's not nearly as fun, but you know, it is what it is. We can't you know, that's one thing too. I feel like you have a really Neb, like the shred team in general has a really good communication platform and really good ways to get messages out to people to make those last minute pivots for practices too. So you know, like Richard, Ethan, when do you guys usually make the call for weather on a practice?
Usually day before.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got contacts with the trail manager in McPherson.
Mhm.
And we actually had him out at our last practice. And he got to talk to the kids about trail etiquette, trail maintenance stuff. And he tagged along with our ride that day because the trails were questionable. They were muddy in some areas. And he actually led us through and told us where to ride, where not to ride, what sections of trail were trouble when it gets real wet. If we do encounter a section of trail that's wet, he actually, which is different from a lot of people, he prefers that we actually ride around it instead of through it. Because of the terrain that the trail's on, it's actually easier to manage when it comes to repairing.
Mhm.
For him. So it was nice to have his expertise and to get the kids there and to see who actually maintains the trails and how he wants them ridden. So yeah, if you have that kind of contact, I encourage you guys to get in touch with those trail managers. And you know, is maybe if the kids are willing to do some trail core hours, you know, maybe the manager will allow you to ride the trails a little bit wet, knowing that the kids will be out next week helping repair. So
Yeah.
thought.
No, that's sharp, and bringing that individual into a practice too kind of helps the kids understand who does the work and puts a face to the trails, which, you know, can be helpful. So, you know, you're directly affecting somebody when you're riding in the mud. So, and it's that guy.
Yeah.
Cool. Sarah, did you have anything you wanted to update everybody with, or are you good?
I'm good. We're just kind of finishing up our courses for the season, so that's exciting. So hopefully we'll get some info out to you guys soon, so you guys can start preparing families and that sort of stuff, athletes. So
Yeah. And I think we've done more. So the Topeka race has taken an extra bonus amount of paperwork that we've gotten through, which is awesome. And I think, are we like 100% good to go?
I think we finished the last of the paperwork today or yesterday or today. I forget which day. Yeah, we should be good to go.
Amazing. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that venue. And tell your kids to bring the climbing wheels. But yeah. Awesome. Did anybody have anything else that you wanted to touch on for this meeting? Anything? Chet, what's up, man?
What routes are we going to be taking? Which trails?
What routes are we going to take on which trails? Was that the question?
Yeah, there's 4 trails at Wilson. Which ones are we gonna be racing?
Oh, so the trail map actually comes out with the race flyer. And it's at the same time for everybody in the league kind of gets it at the same time. To kind of make sure that folks aren't necessarily like warming up or, memorizing trail systems. But Sarah adheres to very strict guidelines in terms of what terrain you can and cannot ride. What is NICA approved terrain. And I feel like if you have ridden the full like 23-mile loop at Wilson, you could make a pretty educated guess as to what parts of the trail we would be using. Yeah, once the race flyer hits, that's when all of that information comes out, which is also why it's important that we have these calls on a race week. Just so we can go over the flyer and make sure everybody understands the course and the layout and where pit zone is, where tent drop off is, and all that jazz too.
Chet, are you asking so that you can
Only fair.
figure out where to put your trailer?
I already got a spot.
Okay.
I'm figuring out so we can pre-ride it and get our racers ready, but it's only fair that everyone knows that at one time.
Yeah, like it's kind of a big old secret until we let it out of the bag. Every year, every venue, and it's kind of exciting too because Sarah like builds these routes from scratch and puts a lot of love and thought into them. So it's cool to watch them come soup to nuts, like the full way around.
Well, don't worry, Sarah. I'll keep it a secret. The trail you gave me, I won't tell anybody. We got it.
Hey, Katie.
We have some coaches that need some on the bike 101, and we have some coaches that need first aid. Do we have any on the bike 101 or first aid trainings planned this spring?
Yes. So we've had 3 OTB 101s to this point. I think I'm going to put out a request. If you guys have a need for an OTB 101, I'll have people fill out a form and then we'll schedule appropriately. Because I've done OTB 101s when one person shows up in 32-degree weather and nothing is more frustrating. So we do have a training network now. And actually, I think Jamie Hinsington actually is an OTB 101 trainer. I know she's got a lot going on, but if need be, we can schedule something for that for your Manhattan area to get some folks trained.
Where do I need to watch for that information?
That'll be coming out through a email blast. So I'll send an email blast explaining the structure and explaining the reasoning behind it.
First aid, is anyone going to be doing an 8-hour first aid?
We've kind of asked that you guys coordinate those on your own. I know that local Red Crosses have the have opportunities for training too. So, but we're not supplying anything from a league perspective this year.
Okay. Everything
I have been struggling with that. I have been trying to find stuff. I talked to the local chief for EMT. I've talked to our local Red Cross and they were going to do something, but we had to have minimum of 8 students and the cost was going to be like $190 a person. I tried to go through the hospital to my wife. I'm kind of running out of options. I really wish Eric would reply back from Lawrence because he kind of talked about being able to help us out, but I can't get anything scheduled with him. But if anybody comes up with anything, I'm all ears because we're kind of struggling.
We're running in kind of the same roadblocks with CPR that he was talking about. Yeah.
Man, if I could like If I could always have a button to cut Neb off, that'd be awesome. Neb, are you still there?
I'm back.
You're good, bud.
So hey, Neb,
Yeah,
I have a name of a guy. Let me check on him. I will send it to you, but I am not arranging it. Last year I arranged the CPR first aid and 3 people showed up. And I ended up paying out of my own pocket because he's a friend of mine. And I felt real guilty about having him come and teach 3 people. And he does a pretty solid job, and he does it kind of out of the kindness of his heart. So
I lost him.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sure it was insightful. But
oh, sorry. Which part did you miss? I'll share a number with you, Neb. Dang.
Well, you said hello, good evening. That was like 40
That was
minutes
it?
ago. No, you said you hooked up your friend. You made sure he got paid, but you don't want to deal with setting that up again, so that you don't have to pay out of your pocket again. Yeah, if you don't mind, just send me his number and I'll try it. We'll see if we can set something up.
Okay.
I actually just contacted our local EMS. And they have a trainer that's going to come out and help train us, or some of our people who need it. And he actually said it was like, I think he was just going to charge us like $12 a person. And then he said something about like, well, something about 10 people. And I said, well, it's going to be a stretch to get 10 people. And he goes, no, my max is 10. So there's like no minimum. He's just going to
Ethan, is that first aid or CPR you're talking?
both.
Ooh, if you do have a CPR thing set up, let me know, because I'll jump in if somebody else has it coordinated. Because I'm the only one for my team that'll get it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we're all the way out in Hutch, so I don't know how far people want to drive, but if I can
I
get set
drove
up,
to
I'll
multiple
definitely-
14-hour drives to bike races this winter. I'll come out to Hutch for a class. Easy.
Perfect. Well, if I get a date set, I will make sure and blast that out on the group me.
yeah, I think honestly, guys, I think that might be a really good opportunity for us to use that GroupMe chat, that team director GroupMe chat, to coordinate stuff like that too. Because we all have the same needs. We're all trying to help each other out. But there's something to be said about a $12 CPR and first aid training though. Like that's legit. I might jump in Kyle's car on the way.
Red Cross, I don't know if I said this or not. Red
Yeah, yeah,
Cross
like it.
was going to have minimum of 8 people, and it was like 180 a person for first aid, and then 120 a person after that.
So I do know the registration piece. Like, so that the training may be $12, but I believe registering with Blue Cross, with the Red Cross or whoever it is, I want to say it's like $30 or $40 for your registration to get your card that says you're trained. So just don't forget the fine print. And I only say that because I just did it last week. So
Did you go through your guy at work?
no, I went through my guy, Eric Nelson.
Man, you got to pin that guy down. I think that's what it is.
I think that is what it is.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe everybody go out to the team director chat and just ask him.
Yeah, Neb, maybe if you offer him some money.
To whom?
To Eric Nelson.
Yeah, well, I think we'd be happy to pay it. I just need him to respond back to one of the messages. I don't have
You
his
should
phone
say,
number, so-
Eric, I pay big dollar.
All right, I'll text him right now. How much? $8?
I don't know. I'd tell you what kind of deal I got, but then you'd be talking to me about how I'm taking like bribes under the table for Lawrence athletes and just showing hometown favoritism. And Nev, I can't go down that road with you.
Mercy. Okay, so if anybody from a team perspective has a first aid coming up or anything available, please like use the coaches chat to blast that stuff out.
I just did. I offered a bribe in writing. And I wrote that it was proposed by Dallas, so we're both going to prison.
Yeah, he invoked my name. That's wrong.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay,
Awesome.
you have another
Casey.
question.
Go ahead, Chet.
Is there any talk about changing the 8-hour first aid requirement to the 16-hour wilderness requirement in Kansas?
So in order to do the wilderness first aid training, you have to have the CPR first aid training. It's a requirement prior to doing the wilderness first aid. So that's why I had to go get mine real quick because mine had just expired. So you got to do both. The reason why I arranged the wilderness first aid is because it is extremely expensive. And the nearest one was going to have people driving to like Texas. So I put one together for the league that way. I don't know if we'll do another one like that next year. We'll try and do another one next year. How's that?
Dallas, just as a feedback, as you decide what you want to do that in the future, we had 2 more coaches who wanted to be added, and I explained them the list was full, and I said you may want to offer one later in the year. And then Matthew, who was signed up, he was really excited to go, but his CPR expired like 2 days ago or something like that, very recently, and he couldn't get into a class beforehand. So I believe I have 3 serious coaches that would like to do it as well. So I don't know if that helps you when you want to decide that in the future or not.
Okay.
Also, Dallas, if you can run it by your guy, my CPR expires this month, but it's just like it expires in February. So like still good technically during the course, but ...
It's still good during the course. You're good.
As a healthcare provider, they expire at the end of the year or end of the month. So if it's February, it'll be end of February.
Yeah, you're all good.
Thanks, sir.
You'll get your ticket and then you can expire. Well done, sir. Nev, you should have planned better.
I hear that a lot, Dallas. I hear that a lot.
Casey,
Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering if we could get a report or have Tina or Sarah maybe on the next call or the call after that talk about the grit weekend, because we have 8 girls on our team this year. And we're trying to tell them, save the date for this, but we don't know what to tell them it's going to look like or anything like that.
So I'll speak to that. So I met with Sarah Hill Nelson a week ago, and I'm going to catch up with her again here in the near future. What we're planning right now is going to be a Saturday morning start. We're thinking somewhere around 9-10 o'clock in the morning. Allow everybody to travel on a Friday and not have to rush somewhere. There will be one overnight, and that will be Saturday night. Depending on the weather and what it looks like, with it being on Snake Farm, there's quite a bit of roof space for staying inside if need be. I'm trying to finalize all of the things, but right now it looks like it's going to be some rider clinic stuff, some bike maintenance stuff, and then some things that I don't know anything about that has to do with girls and stuff like that. So we will get more information out here in the very near future. We'll also get a sign-up sheet for folks who are wanting to help with that.
Thanks. Just the more info we have, we can really push it to our girls and get them excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see what we can drum up here. So.
Thank you.
What's the date?
What's
Do you have a date?
29th.
Yeah, it's on the pit zone.
April 29th and 30th.
Thank you.
Dallas, quick question. I talked to 3 of my female coaches, and I've asked if one of them can take the lead for that weekend. We have one who has a female student athlete that I'm pretty sure she's going to make that race. The other 2 that weekend, the other 2 were not quite as certain. If we end up not having female coaches, is it fine if a male coach comes as well? I don't know.
For the grit?
Right.
So I think that's a conversation we'll have to have. I'm not going to answer that currently, but I think there will be more than plenty qualified. So it's really going to be up to the parents what they want. That's probably a conversation I'm not currently prepared to have. Yeah, to be real honest with you. And
That's fair.
Hey, the
Probably
one
need to
2
ask-
years ago, Neb, like I showed up for the one 2 years ago with my girls, and there was no female coaches that I just sat in the car for the entire duration because they didn't want like guy coaches involved at all.
Gotcha, perfect.
Yeah, I think we want to try and provide as much of a safe space for them to interact and just do whatever they feel like doing without having to have any real male presence there. So, I mean, that's my goal. And like I said, I think
I
there's
like,
gonna
I
be-
like that goal. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I'm supportive of
Yep.
that. So let's roll with
Okay.
that. The only concern I had is two of them were uncertain, and I haven't talked to the third one yet. I just want to make sure I have one female coach that can commit to lead for that weekend.
Okay,
I'll work on it. I'll plan better.
good job, man.
Awesome. So it sounds like so our next coach's call will be March 1st. And I think that we can work to have maybe Sarah Hill Nelson or something more substantial or concrete from the Grit weekend to give to you guys that coach's call. And if we have a flyer or anything beforehand, we'll definitely blast it out ahead of time, but we'll definitely get some more detail around Grit weekend and have that ready for next coach's call.
One more Wilson Lake question.
Mhm.
My one family that has a camper is trying to figure out which campsite's the best one to reserve. Do we have a preferred location or closest to the racing?
Mr. Jensen, if you'd have been on the last coach's call, you'd know the answer to that.
I was on the last coach's call, but my memory sucks and I can't find my notes. So, I've been blown up a whole bunch.
The switch,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
go for it, Casey.
We're
Yeah.
camping at Gamma.
Yeah, that's basically anywhere near that trailhead is a good spot. Kyle,
Gotcha. Thank you.
if you're familiar with that area, switchgrass as a whole, like it's gonna be pretty much a lot of NICA people in that whole area. Awesome. Well, I don't have anything else for you guys tonight. I got an action item of I'm gonna make sure that we got some more content for the Grit weekend to provide out to you all soon. Is there anything else that you guys need me to cover off on? Any questions, concerns from licensing, coaching? Life is good. Pray for warm weather and no precipitation. Easy enough, right?
Hey, Casey, just a reminder about the OTB 101 to send out that email.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Talk to you later.